The champagne bubbles tickled my throat as I watched the sunset paint the Miami coastline in shades of amber and rose. 30 years of building my tech empire from nothing, and here I was, finally enjoying the fruits of my labor aboard my new 80-foot yacht. The gentle rocking of the vessel should have been soothing, but something felt wrong. My daughter Elena's laughter sounded forced, and her husband Eugene kept checking his watch with nervous glances. "Mom, you should come see this view from the stern," Elena called out, her voice carrying an odd urgency that made my stomach clench. I set down my glass and walked toward them, my designer heels clicking against the polished deck. The ocean stretched endlessly before us, deep blue turning to black as night approached. Eugene stood behind me, his presence looming larger than usual. When I turned to smile at him, his face was stone cold. "You know, Vivian," he said, using my full name instead of the usual Mom, "some people don't deserve everything they have." Before I could process his words, powerful hands slammed into my back. The world tilted violently as I plummeted through the air, salt water rushing toward me like a concrete wall. The last thing I heard before hitting the waves was Elena's scream. Whether from shock or planned theatrics, I'd never know. As the yacht's engine roared to life above me, disappearing into the darkness, one thought burned through my panic. They left me here to die. The icy Atlantic waters bit through my evening dress like liquid razor blades, each wave threatening to drag me under. My lungs burned as I fought to stay afloat, the yacht's lights growing smaller until they vanished completely. 20 years of competitive swimming in college suddenly meant everything. I forced myself to float on my back, conserving energy while my mind raced with the brutal reality of my situation. Hours passed like centuries. Hypothermia crept through my bones, my limbs growing heavy and unresponsive. Just as I felt consciousness slipping away, a spotlight blazed across the water. The Coast Guard cutter appeared like an angel of mercy, its crew pulling me from death's grip with military precision. "Ma'am, you're incredibly lucky," the medic said as they wrapped me in heated blankets. "Another hour and you wouldn't have made it." Lucky wasn't the word I'd use. Determined, maybe. Furious, definitely. At the hospital, as doctors checked for hypothermia and exhaustion, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to report this as an accident. Instead, I called Detective Ray Morrison, an old family friend who specialized in financial crimes. When I told him what happened, his silence stretched so long I thought the line had died. "Vivian, if what you're saying is true, we're looking at attempted murder. But we'll need concrete evidence." "Then let's get it," I whispered, my voice hoarse from swallowing seawater. "Because they have no idea what they've unleashed." The game was about to begin, and this time I held all the cards. Detective Morrison arrived at my hospital room within hours, his weathered face grave as he pulled up a chair beside my bed. 20 years of friendship meant he knew I wasn't prone to dramatics, but even he seemed shaken by my account of the evening's events. "Vivian, I need you to walk me through everything again. Every detail matters if we're going to build a case." I closed my eyes, reliving those terrifying moments. Eugene has been acting strange for weeks. Always asking about my will, my business assets. Last month he even suggested I update my life insurance policy. Said it was for Elena's security. Morrison's pen scratched across his notepad. "Any financial troubles you know of?" "That's just it. I don't know anything about their finances anymore. They've been secretive, evasive." But Eugene quit his job at the law firm 6 months ago, claiming he wanted to focus on investment opportunities. The detective's expression darkened. "We'll need to move carefully. If they think you're dead, they might make moves that expose their true intentions. Are you willing to stay officially missing while we investigate?" The thought of letting my daughter believe I was dead twisted my heart, but if she was complicit in this scheme, I needed to know the truth. "Do whatever it takes. But I want surveillance on them immediately." As Morrison left to begin the investigation, I stared out the hospital window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my own flesh and blood was possibly celebrating my demise. The woman who'd built an empire from nothing wouldn't go down without a fight. Eugene had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated exactly who he was dealing with. 3 days later, Detective Morrison sat across from me in a safe house, his laptop displaying grainy surveillance footage from my daughter's Beverly Hills mansion. My heart hammered as I watched Eugene and Elena through their kitchen window, champagne glasses raised in what could only be described as celebration. "I'm sorry you have to see this, Vivian," Morrison said softly. On screen, Eugene was laughing, actually laughing as he pulled Elena into an embrace. She wasn't crying. She wasn't mourning. She was glowing with excitement as they clinked glasses together. The betrayal cut deeper than the cold ocean had. "There's more," Morrison continued, his voice heavy. "Our financial crimes unit has been digging into their accounts. Eugene accumulated over $200,000 in gambling debts to some very dangerous people. The kind who break legs first and ask questions later." My blood ran cold. "And my life insurance policy? $2 million with a double indemnity clause for accidental death. That's $4 million total." He paused, studying my face. "But here's the kicker. Eugene has been secretly meeting with your estate attorney, asking hypothetical questions about inheritance timelines." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. This wasn't a crime of passion or sudden desperation. This was calculated, premeditated murder, planned by the man I'd welcomed into my family and enabled by my own daughter. "What's our next move?" I asked, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. Morrison smiled grimly. "We let them think they've won. Then we show them exactly how wrong they are." The FBI surveillance team had been monitoring every move Eugene and Elena made since my death. Agent Sarah Mosley sat beside me in the surveillance van, her laptop streaming live audio from the bugs they'd planted throughout the house during a grief counseling visit. "Your daughter just made a very interesting phone call," Mosley said, adjusting her headphones. Through the speakers, I heard Elena's voice, cold and calculating in a way I'd never heard before. "Yes, Mr. Peterson, I understand the insurance investigation is standard procedure. My mother's death was clearly accidental. She'd been drinking, the boat was rocky, tragic really." My hands clenched into fists. The woman on that recording wasn't the daughter I'd raised, the little girl who used to cry when stepping on ants. Eugene's voice joined the conversation. "The Coast Guard report confirms she fell overboard during rough weather. We've already started the probate process for her estate." Agent Mosley looked at me with sympathy. "I know this is difficult, but we're building an airtight case. We've documented their financial troubles, the insurance policies, and now we have them actively defrauding investigators." "There's something else," I said, remembering a detail that had been nagging at me. "Eugene insisted on taking that specific yacht route, claiming it was more scenic. But it's also the most isolated stretch of water for miles." Mosley made a note. "Premeditation. That's exactly what we need." As we listened to my daughter and son-in-law plan their new life funded by my supposed death, I made a promise to myself. When I finally revealed the truth, the shock would be so devastating that justice would feel like mercy compared to the psychological warfare I was about to unleash. FBI financial analyst David Parks spread documents across the conference table like a poker player revealing a winning hand. Each paper represented another nail in Eugene and Elena's coffin, and I felt a grim satisfaction watching the case against them solidify. "Your son-in-law has been busy," Parks said, pointing to a series of transactions. 3 days after your supposed death, he paid off his gambling debts in full. $50,000 to a Tony Castellano, who's connected to organized crime in New Jersey. My stomach twisted. He put my daughter in danger with these people? Gets worse. Look at this. Parks slid another document toward me. Eugene has been forging your signature on business documents for months. He's been slowly transferring company assets to offshore accounts he controls. Detective Morrison leaned forward. "We're talking about systematic embezzlement on top of attempted murder. This wasn't just about insurance money, he was stealing your entire empire." The recordings from yesterday played in my mind. Elena laughing about buying a house in the Hamptons. Eugene joking about early retirement. They weren't just celebrating my death. They were dividing up the spoils of their betrayal. "There's one more thing," Agent Mosley added, her expression troubled. "We intercepted a call between Eugene and someone named Vincent. They're planning to accelerate the estate liquidation process. They want to cash out your assets and disappear within 2 weeks." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. My daughter, my only child, was prepared to abandon everything and everyone to live off blood money. "Then we end this now," I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning inside me. "It's time for them to face the consequences of their choices." The surveillance footage from that evening made my blood run cold. Agent Mosley paused the video as a familiar face appeared on screen. My trusted assistant of 15 years, Carmen Rodriguez, entering my daughter's house through the back door with a briefcase. She's been feeding them information about your business operations, your schedule, even your security protocols, Mosley explained. The yacht trip wasn't spontaneous. They've been planning this for months. I watched Carmen embrace Eugene and Elena like old friends, my heart shattering as 15 years of trust dissolved before my eyes. This woman had helped me build my company from a small startup to a multimillion-dollar enterprise. She knew my passwords, my bank account numbers, my deepest business secrets. The forensic accountants found payments from Eugene to Carmen dating back 8 months, Detective Morrison added. $20,000 per month for inside information. On screen, Carmen opened the briefcase, revealing stacks of documents. My private financial records, business contracts, and what looked like forged signatures. They were dismantling my life's work with surgical precision. There's more, Mosley said reluctantly. Carmen has been accessing your personal accounts since the night you supposedly died. She's been transferring money to untraceable cryptocurrency wallets. The betrayal felt like drowning all over again, but this time in a sea of lies and greed. 3 people I'd trusted completely had conspired to murder me and steal everything I'd worked for. But as I watched them celebrate what they believed was their perfect crime, a cold satisfaction settled over me. How much evidence do we have? I asked. Morrison smiled grimly. Enough to put all 3 of them away for life. Agent Mosley's phone buzzed with an urgent message that made her face go pale. She quickly pulled up a new surveillance feed, this one showing Eugene at a private dock, loading suitcases onto a speedboat under cover of darkness. They're running, she announced. Our sources say Eugene just purchased 3 one-way tickets to Switzerland under false identities. My heart raced as I watched my son-in-law move with the urgency of a man who knew his time was running out. But what shocked me more was seeing a 4th figure emerge from the shadows. A man I didn't recognize, tall and imposing, with the confident stride of someone used to violence. That's Vincent Castellano, Morrison said grimly. Tony's nephew. Looks like Eugene borrowed more than money from the wrong people. Through the audio feed we caught fragments of their conversation. Loose ends. Insurance money. Disappear tonight. The horrifying truth crashed over me like another wave. They weren't just planning to fake their own deaths. They were planning to eliminate anyone who could connect them to my attempted murder. Carmen was walking straight into a trap. We move now, I said, standing abruptly. If we wait any longer, there won't be anyone left to arrest. Agent Mosley was already coordinating with tactical teams, but I could see the concern in her eyes. Vivian, once we make arrests, there's no going back. Are you absolutely certain you're ready for this? I thought about the little girl who used to curl up in my lap while I read bedtime stories, then looked at the surveillance footage of that same girl celebrating my death. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The tactical team surrounded the dock like shadows materializing from the night itself. Through my earpiece, I heard Agent Mosley coordinating the arrest from 3 different angles. My hands trembled, not from fear but from anticipation of finally confronting the people who'd tried to murder me. Target acquired. Vincent Castellano is armed, came the whispered report from Team Alpha. I watched from the surveillance van as Eugene frantically loaded the last suitcase, his movements sharp with panic. Elena stood guard while Carmen approached, clutching a laptop that likely contained all my stolen financial data. Vincent just pulled a gun, Agent Mosley reported. He's not planning to leave witnesses. The night exploded into chaos. FBI agents swarmed the dock, their tactical lights cutting through the darkness like lightning bolts. Eugene tried to run but slipped on the wet planks, crashing hard against a piling. Elena screamed as agents surrounded her, finally showing genuine emotion for the first time since my supposed death. But it was Carmen's face that haunted me most, the moment she realized she'd been betrayed by her co-conspirators. Vincent had planned to kill her all along, making her another casualty in their scheme to cover their tracks. FBI. Drop your weapon. The command echoed across the water. Vincent's surrender came with a bitter laugh. You think you've won? There are others involved. People with more power than you can imagine. As handcuffs clicked around Eugene's wrists, he looked directly into one of the surveillance cameras, his eyes wild with desperate fury. She's not dead. Vivian's not dead. This is all a setup. Little did he know he was absolutely right. And I was just getting started. The interrogation room felt smaller than it looked on television, fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across Eugene's haggard face. Through the one-way mirror, I studied the man who'd tried to murder me, noting how his confident facade had crumbled into desperate fear. Agent Mosley sat across from him, her expression professionally neutral. "We have video evidence of you pushing Vivian Richardson off that yacht, Eugene. We have audio recordings of you celebrating her death. We have financial records showing your motive." "You don't understand," Eugene pleaded, his voice cracking. "Those people, Tony Castellano's crew, they would have killed me if I didn't pay. They threatened Elena too. So you decided to kill your mother-in-law instead?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Eugene's composure finally shattered completely. She was always looking down on me, acting like I wasn't good enough for her precious daughter. When I found out about her offshore accounts, I thought if something happened to her. You thought you could steal $50 million and blame it on an accident. I'd heard enough. Standing up from my chair, I walked toward the interrogation room door. It was time for the performance of my lifetime. "Wait," Detective Morrison said, catching my arm. "Are you sure you're ready for this? Once you walk through that door, there's no taking it back." I thought about 30 years of building something from nothing, about the daughter I'd raised alone after her father's death, about the trust that had been violated in the most spectacular way imaginable. "He wanted me dead," I said simply. "Now he gets to live with the consequences." I opened the interrogation room door and stepped inside, watching Eugene's face cycle through disbelief, terror, and finally resigned defeat. The color drained from his skin so completely that Agent Mosley actually reached for her radio, concerned he might be having a medical emergency. "Hello, Eugene," I said, taking the seat directly across from him. "Surprised to see me?" His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. This isn't possible. You fell into the ocean. You drowned." "I'm an excellent swimmer. Did you forget I was Atlantic Coast champion 3 years running at Howard University?" I leaned forward, letting every ounce of my fury show in my eyes. "What I can't understand is how you convinced my daughter to help you murder her own mother." "Elena didn't know," he whispered, then immediately clammed up, realizing his mistake. Agent Mosley pounced on the admission. "So you admit to planning this alone? To pushing Vivian off that yacht with intent to kill?" The legal ramifications crashed over Eugene like the waves that had nearly claimed my life. First-degree attempted murder, grand theft, conspiracy, insurance fraud. Each charge carried decades in prison. "Where's Elena now?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Interrogation room B," Morrison replied from behind me. "She's been asking for you since we arrested her." I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in days. Then it's time my daughter and I had a long overdue conversation about loyalty, family, and the price of betrayal. The walk down that corridor felt like approaching the edge of another cliff. The sight of my daughter in handcuffs broke something inside me that might never heal. Elena looked up as I entered the second interrogation room, her eyes red from crying, mascara streaked down her cheeks like black tears. For a moment she was my little girl again, the one who used to run to me when she scraped her knee. "Mama?" she whispered, the childhood name she hadn't used in years. "You're alive." "No thanks to you," I replied, sitting down across from her. The steel in my voice surprised even me. Elena's face crumpled. "I didn't know. I swear on my life, I didn't know what Eugene was planning. He told me you fell, that it was an accident, that we needed to protect ourselves from the insurance investigation. Then explain why you were celebrating my death. Explain the champagne, the house shopping, the vacation planning." She broke down completely, her whole body shaking with sobs. He said if I acted sad they'd investigate deeper. That we needed to seem like we were moving on normally. I was trying to protect us both." Agent Mosley slid a tablet across the table showing financial records. "Your signature is on documents transferring your mother's assets, Elena. Documents dated before her supposed death." My daughter's eyes widened in genuine shock as she stared at the forgeries. "These aren't. I never signed these. Eugene must have." Looking at her face, I saw the moment she realized the full scope of her husband's deception. The man she trusted had manipulated her into becoming an accessory to attempted murder while planning to frame her as a co-conspirator. "He played us both," I said quietly. The question now is, are you going to help us stop him? 6 months later, I sat in the front row of the courtroom as the judge read Eugene's sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole for attempted murder, with additional consecutive sentences for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Vincent Castellano received similar punishment for his role in the broader criminal enterprise. Carmen, who had cooperated fully with the FBI investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence, was led away in handcuffs after receiving 12 years for her part in the conspiracy. The woman who'd helped me build my empire had ultimately tried to destroy it, but her testimony had been crucial in exposing the full scope of Eugene's crimes. Elena sat beside me, her hand trembling in mine. The evidence had ultimately proven her innocence in the murder plot, though she'd received 2 years of probation for unwittingly signing fraudulent documents. Our relationship was rebuilding slowly, therapy session by therapy session, but trust would take years to fully restore. Mrs. Richardson, the prosecutor said as we left the courthouse, your courage in pursuing justice despite the personal cost is remarkable. Most people wouldn't have had the strength. I looked back at the courthouse steps where reporters were already gathering to cover the story. Tomorrow, headlines would read about the tech CEO who survived her own murder and brought down a criminal conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything she'd built. My family thought they could erase me, I said to the cameras. Instead, they discovered that some people are harder to kill than they appear. And some betrayals carry consequences that last a lifetime. The case was closed, but my real work was just beginning. Rebuilding not just my business empire, but the trust of a daughter who'd nearly lost her mother forever to greed and manipulation. Let's settle this. Did Vivian handle this like a boss, or did she let anger make the decision for them? I'm seeing both sides and need your perspective. Comment below with your take. And if you're here for more stories about people who refuse to be treated like garbage, make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you'll want notifications on.